الشيطان وليربط على قلوبكم ويثبت به الأقدام.
Remember when he overwhelmed
الله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. من كان يريد العزة فلله العزة جميعا إليه يصعد الكلم الطيب والعمل الصالح يرفعه والذين يمكرون السيئات لهم عذاب شديد ومكر أولئك هو يبور.
Having made it clear that those who follow the footsteps of the devil, those who accepted his invitation to be his party, are going to be doomed. Then, as for the believers who exercise righteous deed, are going to be given a tremendous reward. Then he said, "Man kana yuridu al-izzata," whoever wants power and glory, فَلِلَّهِ الْإِزَّةُ جَمِيعًا, let him know that the power and glory belongs to Almighty Allah and to Him alone. To obtain power and glory, he must believe in the Almighty Allah, the creator of the heavens and the earth, and must believe in the message with which he sent his noble prophet, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That is why in another verse, in Surat al-Munafiqun, he said, وَلِلَّهِ الْعِزَّةُ وَلِرَسُولِهِ وَلِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ. Power and glory belongs to Almighty Allah alone, then to His apostle, then to the believers. فَلِلَّهِ الْعِزَّةُ جَمِيعًا إِلَيْهِ يَصْعَدُ الْكَلِمُ الطَّيِّبُ. Then the righteous word or the goodly word rises to Him, subhanahu wa ta'ala. That does not at all mean that the Almighty Allah occupies a particular physical place where the word will rise to Him. No. It is only here the rising is metaphorical, not physical. That it will rise to the presence of the Almighty Allah. The Almighty Allah is omnipresent, is everywhere. That means He will accept the righteous word, automatically it is pronounced. Here, Al-Kalimu Tayyib refers first and foremost to the Kalimatu Shahada, La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That the kalma that formed the basis and the foundation of the entire religion. In fact, this kalma is the same kalma with which all the foregone prophets were sent. None of them was sent except that he was commanded by God to declare to his people that there is no any other deity but Allah. And for anyone to convert to the religion, he must pronounce this word, even if he believes in it. Without him pronouncing it, that doesn't make him a Muslim. And if he pronounces it without him believing in it, he is nothing short than a hypocrite. And if he believes in it and refuses to pronounce it, he is nothing short than zindiq, somebody who is misguided. And one has to pronounce it, and one has to bear attestation to its fact. That is the significance of zikrullah. That is why in several traditions of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, he exhorted the ummah to always engage themselves and renew their faith through the pronouncement of this word, La ilaha illallah. Jaddidu imanakum biqawli la ilaha illallah. In fact, in one of those traditions rendered by Imam al-Tirmidhi in his collections, he reported on the authority of Abu Darda. The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, Ala unabbiukum bi afdali a'malikum wa azkaha inda malikikum wa khairul lakum min an tunfiqu az-zahaba wal waraq وَخَيْرٌ لَكُمْ مِنْ أَنْ تَلْقَوْا عَدُوَّكُمْ فَتَضْرِبُوا أَعْنَاقَهُمْ وَيَضْرِبُوا أَعْنَاقَكُمْ قَالُوا بَلَى يَا رَسُولَ اللَّهِ قَالَ ذِكْرُ اللَّهِ. Won't I show you the most exalted of your righteous deed and the most preferred by your Lord? وَخَيْرٌ لَكُمْ مِنْ أَنْ تُنْفِقُوا الذَّهَبَ وَالْوَرَقَ. And it is better for you to do it than to expend your gold and silver in the cause of Allah. In fact, it is even better for you to exercise this righteous deed than to even encounter your unbelievers, to go to jihad against the unbelievers. You either kill them or you get killed by them. That is, this righteous deed is far better than all this. They said, Bala ya Rasulullah, oh Prophet, we want you to show us these righteous deeds. We want you to tell us what this righteous deed is. The Prophet said, is zikrullah. That is to engage in the mention of the Almighty Allah. That is kalimatu shahada, la ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah. Fayya abdul wujuhi zikr. Ilay yas'alul kalimut tayyib. That is why the day on which the Almighty Allah destroyed Pharaoh, Moses went to the place where he always conversed in communion with God so as to give his thanks to the Almighty Allah for destroying his enemy. He said, oh my Lord, today you have made me happy by destroying my enemy, Pharaoh. So I want you to give me some righteous deeds that I will perform so that I too will please you by the exercise of these righteous deeds. The Almighty Allah said, oh Moses, go and say la ilaha illallah. Go and pronounce the kalimat shahada, la ilaha illallah. Oh my Lord, I need something special. This one is too common. In fact, no one will convert to the true religion without him pronouncing this word. So I want something special, something peculiar, unique. The Almighty Allah said, oh Moses, go and pronounce this kalimat shahada. Let me tell you something. The Almighty said, if the seven heavens and the seven earths, that is, were to be put together on one hand of a scale, and the kalimat shahada will be put on the other hand, then the hand that carries the kalimat shahada will overweigh. Just one and single kalimat shahada is heavy enough to overweigh the seven heavens and the seven earths. Imagine one pronouncement of it. إِلَيْ يَسْأَلُ الْكَلِمُ الطَّيِّبُ وَالْعَمَلُ الصَّالِحُ. As for the righteous deeds, يَرْفَعُهُ. The Almighty Allah raise it up. You can see in the Allah verse, it says, وَالَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ. Amanu means the pronouncement of kalimat shahada, yes, al-kalimu al-tayyib. وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ وَالْعَمَلُ الصَّالِحُ يَرْفَعُهُ. وَالَّذِينَ يَمْكُرُونَ السَّيِّئَاتِ. As for those who always scheme an evil plan against the Muslims or against Islam, that is against the Prophet ﷺ, this verse primarily referred to the Meccan pagans who gathered together in their chamber. That is why they always used to hold their council meeting, Darul Nadwa. They gathered there conferring on how to get rid of the Prophet, peace and blessing be upon him. Some of them suggested that he should be killed. Others, some of them suggested that he should be sent to وَيَمْكُرُ بِكَ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا لِيُثْبِتُوكَ أَوْ يَقْتُلُوكَ أَوْ يَخْرُجُوا وَيَمْكُرُونَ وَيَمْكُرُ اللَّهُ وَاللَّهُ خَيْرُ الْمَاكِرِينَ. O Prophet of God, call to remembrance when the Meccan pagans gathered together, scheming on how to get rid of you. Some of them suggested that the Prophet should be sent out of Mecca to Syria. Since he claimed prophethood, this land had never witnessed any indigenous prophet. That is Mecca. Because even Abraham and Ishmael, of course, a city where prophethood was very common, and prophets, quite a number of them were sent there. Others said no. Of course, the devil too was there. He came in a form of an old man. He was asked, where are you from? He said, I'm from Najd. When he was allowed in, some of them did not want the Prophet ﷺ to be killed, although they were not Muslims. but they didn't want him to be killed. So they will make a very light suggestion. They will suggest something lighter, not something terrible. That's why one of them suggested that let the Prophet be sent to Syria, sent out of Mecca to Syria. The devil was there, Satan. He said, sit down. You people have been complaining that this man is soft-spoken person. So as soft-spoken as he was, as he is, of course, if you send him out, he will attract followers, and he will build a strong army with which to come and fight you. So this is not a right suggestion. Then another person stood up and said, well, why won't we build a house or a room that doesn't have a door or a window? We will be throwing food for him to sustain himself up to the end of his life. The devil said, no, this is not a good idea. His kinsmen can demolish the building and bring him out. Then Abu Jahl, the arch enemy of the Prophet ﷺ, stood up and said, well, I think what we're going to do is let's get 40 strong men from different clans of Quraysh, from 40 clans. Each strong man should come from a particular clan. And when we have them, we give them swords and let them go and surround his house. As soon as he comes out for his prayer, let them just kill him. I believe Banu Abdul Manaf or Banu Hashim would not stand the war against 40 clans. They cannot wage war against 40 clans. The best they might ask is to ask for the blood money. And we are rich enough to meet their bill. Whatever they set as blood money, we can pay. So the devil said, well, this suggestion is the best. So they agreed on this, and they sent 40 men to go and surround the house of the Prophet ﷺ. That is why this was revealed, is mentioned here, because in the later chapter, Surat Yasin, the Almighty Allah will mention in details how those 40 men went to the house of the Prophet ﷺ with the intention of killing him, and how the Almighty delivered his Prophet, and how they were eventually destroyed in the Battle of Badr. The subsequent chapter will mention it, inshallah. Those who scheme evil against Muslims, or against the Prophet ﷺ, or against Islam, lahum azabun shadid, they are bound to be thrown into a terrible chastisement in the hereafter. وَمَكْرُ أُولَٰئِكَ وَيَبُورُ, and their scheming, their evil plan will bring about nothing. That it will yield no result.
خلقكم من تراب ثم من نطفة ثم جعل لكم أزواجا وما تحمل من أنثى ولا تضع إلا بعلمه وما يعمر من معمر ولا ينقص من عمره إلا في كتاب إن ذلك على الله يسير.
Wallahu khalaqakum min turabi. You can see the Almighty Allah summarize the entirety of the existence of humankind in this single verse. Right from Adam down to the last human being that is going to be given birth to, up to the end of the world, in this single verse. Wallahu khalaqakum min turabin. Allah is the one that created you from the dust. Who was created from the dust? Of course, Adam, right? Summa min nutfatin, then from seminal fluid, from semen. Who were created from seminal fluid? Of course, the progeny of Adam, right from the first born baby of Adam up to the last one, that's up to the end of the world. Summa min nutfatin. Summa ja'alakum azwaja, then he made you pairs and of different sexes, that is gender, the males and females, male are supposed to be married to the females and vice versa. ثُمَّ جَعَلَكُمْ أَزْوَاجًا. That is the reproduction here. Allah, the Almighty Allah, out of His wisdom, decided to make the reproduction of human beings through marriage. Human being is the only creature that has the culture of matrimony. The angels, they are too high for that. The animals are too low for it. Who else? Of course, human beings. So, matrimony is the common characteristic of humankind. No matter how unfaithful, no matter how unbelievers they may be, they must have a culture that provides for the arrangement of getting a man and woman married. There has to be an established culture in every human society. No human society has ever existed on the record of history without it having a culture of matrimony. No matter how an unbeliever, no matter how unfaithful the society might be, even if it is an atheistic society, the society that does not believe in the existence of God, it still have the culture of marriage. Take for example, the naturalists or the atheists, those who do not believe in the existence of God, they still have a culture of marriage. Why? Because the Almighty Allah, out of His wisdom, made this a common phenomenon among human beings wherever they existed and in every age of human history. That is why in Surat Al-Furqan He said, هُوَ الَّذِي خَلَقَ مِنَ الْمَاءِ بَشَرًا فَجَعَلَهُ نَسَبًا وَصِهِرًا وَكَانَ رَبُّكَ قَدِيرًا. He is the one that created human being and made him relative by blood and by in-law. That is, it is only human beings that enjoys two different kinds of relatives. He has his blood relatives and he has his in-law relatives. That is, those who are related to him through his wife, the sisters, brothers of his wife are his brothers-in-law and they are his sisters-in-law. And the parents of his wife are his parents-in-law. You cannot have any animal. In fact, this idea of in-law doesn't exist in the animal society. And neither does it exist in the angelic society. As I said, reproduction does not exist in the angelic community. Allah created them without them being reproduced, without them being born like human beings or like animals. And it is only human being that is blessed with this culture of marriage. ثُمَّ جَعَلَكُمْ أَزْوَاجًا. He made you mates, that is, life partners. Males are supposed to be life partners of females and vice versa. ثُمَّ جَعَلَكُمْ أَزْوَاجًا. That is why it is only married in Islam that if a couple is to convert to Islam today, there is no need for the renewal of their marriage, even if the marriage was conducted in the church or in a shrine. Anywhere, the marriage is considered valid, even though it was not conducted in the way of Islam. As long as they were married before the conversion, after the conversion, their marriage requires no renewal, even with a single fajr. Their marriage is considered valid. That is why when the companions of the Prophet, some of them, when they converted to Islam, the Prophet did not ask them for the renewal of the marriage. What you only asked them, some of them that were married to more than 4 wives, there was someone that converted to Islam among them who was married to 10 wives. The Prophet told him to choose 4 out of the 10 and divorce the rest. And he did. You can see, there's virtually no need for the renewal or, let's say, purification of the marriage. It requires no such things. Where did we get it? Of course, from the Holy Quran. When the Holy Quran is narrating to us, when it was narrating to us the story of Abu Lahab, he said, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Tabbat yada Abi Lahabin wa tabba, ma agna anhu maluhu wa ma kasaba, sayasla naran zata lahab, wa mra'atuhu. You can see here, his wife. The Holy Quran didn't say his mistress. Why did he say his friend, his girlfriend, or anything, or his whore. He didn't say. He mentioned her as a legitimate wife to Abu Lahab. Wamra'atuhu, and his wife. The Holy Book will never use a wrong word in describing anybody. If she was not considered a legitimate wife, the Holy Book wouldn't have mentioned her as a wife. It would have mentioned her as a whore, or as a mistress, or any other word, but not wife. You get it? And this is why the scholars got the legitimacy of the marriage of an unbelieving couple. He may have a legitimate son to his parents, even though he's not a Muslim. He may have a bastard that might be a Muslim. Whoever is born out of wedlock, of course, is a bastard, whether a Muslim or not. And whoever is born out of marriage, in whatever manner the marriage was conducted, as long as they are not Muslims. If they are Muslims, the marriage must be conducted according to the Islamic rules. But if they are not, they are free to conduct their marriage the way they want. And whenever they convert, there is no need for the renewal of that marriage. That is why Abu Lahab here had his wife mentioned as a wife. Wamra'atu, and his wife, Hammalatul Hatab. This is one of in fact, it is only marriage that enjoys this sacredness, that it is considered valid in whatever manner it's contracted. The couple in question are not Muslims. But if they are Muslims, the marriage must be conducted according to the rules of Islam. If they are not, they are free to conduct marriage the way they want, and it is considered legitimate and valid. ثُمَّ جَعَلَكُمْ أَزْوَاجًا, then he made you peers. وَمَا تَحْمِلُ مِنْ أُنْثَىٰ, no woman will conceive, وَلَا تَدَعُ إِلَّا بِإِلْمِ, and no woman will put to bed, will be delivered of either a baby boy or a baby girl, إِلَّا بِإِلْمِ, except by his knowledge. Not only by his knowledge, he is the one, subhanahu wa ta'ala, that preordained her. And what is she going to conceive? What will be the gender of the embryo, expected baby, whether a male or female? All these are decided by his sheer will, subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is why in a tradition reported by Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, Allah well pleased with him, he said, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, حدثنا رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم هو الصادق المصدوق أن أحدكم ليجمع خلقه في بطن أمه 40 يوما نطفة ثم يكون علقة مثل ذلك ثم يكون مضغة, up to where he said فيرسل إليه الملك فيؤمر بأربع كلمات بكتب رزقه وأجله فشقي أو سعيد فوالله الذي لا إله غيره إن أحدكم ليعمل بأمل أهل الجنة حتى ما يكون بينه وبينها إلا ذراع فيسبق عليه الكتاب فيعمل بأمل أهل النار فيدخلها وإن أحدكم ليعمل بأمل أهل النار حتى ما يكون بينه وبينها إلا ذراع فيعمل بأمل أهل الجنة فيدخلها رفعت الأقلام وجفت الصحف. Ibn Mas'ud said, the Prophet ﷺ, the trustworthy and the most trusted, as-sadiqul masduq, the truthful and the most trustworthy, he said, I swear by Allah, besides whom there is no any other deity, that each one of you would have his process of creation. The process will be, that is, the components of his creation will be assembled in the womb of his mother. لَيَجْمَعُ خَلْقُهُ فِي بَطْنِ أُمِّهِ 40 يَوْمًا نِرْفَةً, in the form of seminal fluid. Then he will be turned into a clot of blood, then into a morsel of flesh, that is flesh. Then he will be fashioned into a complete human being. Then an angel will be sent to him, and a spirit will be breathed into him for him to be a living embryo. Then the angel will be commanded to write down the lifespan of that particular conceived human being. How long is he going to live? As we are going to read inshallah in the later verse, وَمَا تَعْمِلُ مِنْ أُنْثَىٰ وَمَا يُؤَمَّرُ مِنْ مُؤَمَّرٍ وَلَا يُنْقَصُ فِي أُمُرِهِ إِلَّا فِي كِتَابٍ. وَمَا تَعْمِلُ مِنْ أُنْثَىٰ, no woman will conceive, وَلَا تَدَعُ, no woman will put to bed إِلَّا بِإِلْمِ, except by his knowledge. وَمَا يُؤَمَّرُ مِنْ مُؤَمَّرٍ, no long-lived person will be given a long life, and no another person short-lived will have his life shorter. than the one given long life, except that it is recorded in the book, that is in Lawul Mahfuz. That is, this verse is being interpreted by this tradition that I am just reading. That is the tradition of Ibn Masud. That the angel will be commanded to write down the lifespan of the expected baby. How long is he going to live? For how many years? Then his sustenance. What is he going to sustain himself with? That of what substance is he going to be sustained? How legitimate is the substance? Or that is, somebody must spend the whole of his life without him eating a single halal. Throughout his life he was eating haram. And that is it through legitimate earning that he will sustain himself, or illegitimate earning? And what is the size of the sustenance? That is, if we are to quantify the food that he is going to eat, how many sacks, for instance, of rice, or how many cartons of any food that is packaged, and how many liters of drinks is he going to drink before his death? All these are meticulously written down by an angel. He doesn't need to struggle. If he knew that, in fact, what is prescribed, what is preordained for him will never miss him in terms of food. He's making things difficult for himself because he doesn't know. If you are to die today and you leave behind the remaining of your sustenance, nobody will eat it. It's meant for you. That's why you can never die without you consuming the last meal preordained for you to consume, and the last drink, whether water or any kind of drink whatsoever. And you cannot live any longer after exhausting what was prescribed for you, what was preordained for you to eat or to drink. Ibn Masud said, the Prophet ﷺ said, the angel will be commanded to write down the sustenance of the expected baby, وَأَجَلِهِ, his lifespan, how long is he going to live? فَشَقِيٌّ أَوْ سَعِيدٌ, is he going to be an inmate of paradise, or is he going to be thrown into hellfire? And the Prophet ﷺ continued saying, I swear by Allah, besides whom there is no any other God, that one of you may engage in himself in the righteous deeds, the deeds of the people of paradise, up to a point where between him and the paradise is not as long as, let's say, 3 cubic. But before his death, what was written against him will overtake him. And he will change his way and will start engaging himself in the deeds of the people of hellfire. And he will die as an unbeliever. I will end up in the hellfire. Fire kulaha. And one of you might engage himself in sinful acts, in heinous deeds, the deeds of the people of hellfire, up to a point where between and the hellfire is not as long as 3 cubic. But before he would die, then he will be overtaken by the preordination written for him. Then it will overtake him, and he will start engaging himself in the righteous deeds. He will mend his ways, and he will end up in the paradise. The Prophet ﷺ said, the papers on which the preordination and predestination were prescribed by the Almighty Allah are dry. That is, the pages are dry, and the Rufi'at al-Aqlam and the pens too are dry, and they are lifted from the pages. Meaning there will be no room for any amendment or any modification of any kind whatsoever in the predestination. Here, it may sound paradoxical for some people to read in the, most especially in the traditions of the Prophet ﷺ, where the Prophet used to say, whoever maintains good relationship with his kinsman is going to have his life prolonged. So if there is this doctrine of preordination, how do we handle a tradition of this kind? They have stated that if we maintain good relationship with our kinsmen, we are going to have our lifespan prolonged. Scholars said what the Prophet ﷺ meant by elongation of the lifespan for those who are nice to their kinsmen is the Almighty will bless the lifespan. Within that period, preordained for him, he will execute so many things that people that live much longer than him could never execute. Others say no, big in the safeguarded tablet, Allahul Mahfuz. The Almighty Allah will preordain, for instance, somebody that's supposed to live for 90 years. He's going to have, the Almighty Allah will write on the slate that this man is going to live for 50 years. But if he maintain good relationship with his kinsman, he's going to have an increment of 40 years. Then that is, he's going to write that below the original preordination. And here, what might not be apparent to people is that whether this man is going to be nice to his relatives or not, for him to deserve an additional 40 years. As for the Almighty Allah, it's already written that the man is going to be nice and he's going to have an additional 40 years. Or he will never be nice to his people and he is going to have his life cut short by 40 years, for instance. And they supported their argument with other verses in the chapter Surat al-Hijri, where the Almighty Allah said, يَمْهُ اللَّهُ مَا يَشَاءُ وَيُثَبِّتُ وَإِنْدَهُ أُمُّ الْكِتَابِ. The Almighty Allah wipes whatever He wants and He retains what He pleases in terms of the content, that is the book of preordination. Here it means there are two kinds of tablets here. There is Al-Lawul Mahi wal Isbat, the tablet that contains events that are taking place right now, Mahi wal Isbat. And there is the bigger tablet above it, that is Allahul Mahfuz, in which there is no room for change or modification. What is contained in Allahul Mahfuz is what is taking place right now. If somebody is righteous, if you look up, should you have the verse remove from your eyes, you will see it written there that he is righteous. But what is written in Allahul Mahfuz is the ultimate thing. How he's going to end up his life. That's what is written there. So that is why there is no contradiction here whatsoever. What is in the Lawul Mahfuz is retained permanently, there is no change. But what is in Lawul Mahfuz, it is what is taking place now, as if it is a mirror reflecting our current activities. While Lawul Mahfuz contains the ultimate things, how are we going to end up our life? Whether we are going to die as Muslims, or we are going to be accepted by the Almighty Allah, or A'udhu Billah, some might not. Only God knows. وَمَا يُؤَمَّرُ مِن مُؤَمَّرٍ. No long-lived person will have his life prolonged. وَلَا يُنْقَصُ مِنْ أُمُرِهِ. Or another short-lived person will have his life cut short, except that it is prescribed, it is written, it is preordained, and it is written in the great safeguarded tablet that's in the book. Fi kitab here is a reference to the safeguarded tablet. إِلَّا فِي كِتَابٍ إِنَّ ذَلِكَ عَلَى اللَّهِ يَسِيرٌ. Certainly, to have all the events of the universe written on a particular tablet is something very easy for the Almighty Allah. The Almighty Allah does not write them in order to avoid forgetfulness. No, not at all, far from it. It is out of His wisdom that He decided to write such events on the safeguarded tablet, Allahul Mahfuz. Inna dhalika Allah yasir.
وما يستوي البحران هذا عذب فرات سائغ شرابه وهذا ملح نجاج ومن كل تاكلون لحما طريا وتستخرجون حلية تلبسونها وترى الفلك فيه مواخر ولتبتغوا من فضله ولعلكم تشكرون.
وما يستوي البحران. Here the Almighty Allah will give parables so that we can distinguish between right and wrong, good and bad, the righteous servants and those who are not. He will give quite a number of parables so as to enlighten us on how to distinguish between the right path and the wrong one. وَمَا يَسْتَوِي الْبَارَانِ, the two bodies of water, the two seas are not equal. That is the sultry sea and the palatable, the sea that contains palatable water. They are not equal. وَمَا يَسْتَوِي الْبَارَانِ هَذَا عَذْبٌ فُرَاتٌ سَائِغٌ شَرَابُهُ. This one, عَذْبٌ فُرَاتٌ, sweet, palatable, and pleasant to drink. For Azbun, Furatun, Sa'ighun Sharabu, pleasant to drink. Wahaza Milun Rijaj, and daughter of the other sea, that is the sultry, the salty water, Milhun, and the other sea contain salty water, Ujajun, and bitter to drink. وَمِن كُلٍّ, and from these two different oceans, تَأْكُلُونَ لَحْمًا طَرِيًّا, you bring out لَحْمًا طَرِيًّا, you consume fresh meat, referring to the fish, of course, not only fish, because any aquatic animal in Islam is considered allowable. The Prophet ﷺ said, هُوَ الطَّهُورُ مَاؤُهُ الْهِلُّ مَيْتَتُهُ, while discussing the legitimacy of the purity of sea water. They asked him, O Prophet of God, sometimes we'll embark on a ship with some little water, and there might be need for us to take ablution. And this water that we carried along is too little for us to use as that is to drink it and then take ablution. Can we use the seawater for ablution, considering the fact that it is salty? The Prophet said, هُوَ الطَّهُورُ مَاؤُهُ الْهِلُّ مَيْتَتُهُ. That is the basis of the tradition is in Muwatta Malik, and it is rendered by Sheikh al-Asqalani in his book Bulugh al-Maram. The Prophet ﷺ said, this water is pure and purified. That is, not only is it pure, it's purifying water. There is difference between pure water and purifying water in Sharia. When we say the water is pure, it might be pure, but not purifying. You cannot use it to purify yourself. For instance, if you are not purified, you want to take ablution or you want to take ritual bath, you cannot use salty water. But if it is the sea water, no matter how salty, you can use it to take ritual bath, you can use it to perform ablution, you can use it for all sorts of purification. Because it is declared purifying by the Prophet ﷺ. Dahuru, bimana dahirun fi nafsi, mutahhirun lighairi. It is pure in itself and it purifies whoever wants to purify himself with it. It has the power to purify. For instance, if you have water that contains some lubricants, so you can see the water, if it touches you, you can still pray. Because look, as long as the lubricant is not najasa, right? But you cannot use same water to perform ablution. You can't. Nor can you use it to take ritual bath. For instance, somebody that has a carnal affair with his wife, if he wants to take ritual bath, you cannot use water that is contaminated by some lubricants. But you can use the salt, and you cannot use water that contains natural salt or any other ingredient, anything that can change its color or change its taste or change its smelling. That is, these basic qualities of water must be intact. It must retain its original color, original taste, as well as original smelling, for it to be purifying. It may be pure, but not purified. It doesn't have the power to purify. You cannot use it to purify yourself. But if it touches your clothes or it touches you, you can still pray. Because it doesn't contain any najas, any impurity. As long as it's not contaminated by impurity, by najas, you can use it. If it touches you, there is no problem. But you cannot use it to perform ablution, more especially in the school of Imam Malik. But if it is seawater, you can use it. Haza azbun furatun sa'igun sharabuhu. This sea, azbun, is sweet, furatun, palatable, sa'igun sharabu, and pleasant to drink. Wahaza minul ujaj, and the other is salty and bitter. Wamin kullin, and from the two kinds of water, ta'kuluna laman tariyan, you take fresh meat. The Prophet ﷺ said the water is purifying, and the meat, any meat that brought out from the sea is halal, unconditionally halal. Only that some scholars of Islamic jurisprudence like Imam Malik and Abu Hanifa, some of them said insanul mai. So it is features, it's just like a human being, yet it existed in water. It is an animal that lives in water. It looks exactly like human being. So Imam Malik said, since you call it human, despite the fact that it's not originally a human being, I don't think I can advise consuming it. And there is khinzirul ma'i, that is the swine of water that exists in water. It only exists in water. Imam Malik also said this, what do you call it? They say khinzir. The Almighty Allah has forbidden us from consuming the flesh of swine. So irrespective of where it existed, either in water or ground, so you cannot consume the flesh of swine. And you bring out ornaments with which you adorn yourselves. Talbasuna, you wear them like diamonds or precious stones that are normally taken out of sea, and you adorn yourself with them. And often at times you see ships plowing on the sea, that is sailing on the sea. Some are into shipping business. Is that not so? Through this, they seek the bounty of the Almighty Allah. You see big ships sailing on the sea. You seek the bounty of your Lord so that you may give thanks. All these are mentioned so that you may give thanks.
الشيطان وليربط على قلوبكم ويثبت به الأقدام.
Remember when he overwhelmed you with drowsiness, giving security from him, and sent down upon you from the sky rain by which to purify you and remove from you the evil suggestions of Satan, and to make steadfast your heart.